Welcome back, WNST. I am feeling good jumping off the plane from Cincinnati and up to Indianapolis to see you two on Sunday night as the Ravens have yet to surrender a point here. And, there's good news all along the freeway here is down in College Park, the Terps got busy with Towson over the weekend in a little bit of a bludgeoning there, the David and Goliath thing going on. Dave Preston was in the press box at Byrd Stadium on Sunday as the Towson Tigers went down to Maryland. Now, of course, Maryland here in the early going. Dave, DJ Durkin, I think he can coach a little bit so far, right? I mean, the Texas thing, it's going to take a little bit for that to linger, and I don't know that this team's going to be a good upset, kind of team to go somewhere and lay an egg. They don't look to be that. They look very, very prepared, man.
There was the chance, there's always a chance of a letdown after you win in a place like Austin, and this team was very focused on Saturday. Was it a perfect 60 minutes? No. There were some issues defensively. They let Towson move the ball a couple times in the first half. In fact, it reminded me of the end of the first half back in 2011 when Towson came down and they were unable to get things done.
I remember that. If they would have hit a bomb in that game, they would have beaten the Terps that day.
We had a chance for 1-11 that year, sadly. But it's a similar thing. It was a 3rd and 5 from the 9 and 2 incomplete passes. I think one was was behind the receiver and he was all alone. Maryland dodged that bullet. Granted, they were up 21 at the time. They came out in the second half and they just smoked them. They scored on 5 straight offensive possessions. They held Towson to 6 yards on 13 plays from scrimmage in that third quarter. And once the game was no longer a game, they allowed, some late scores. But everything you want to see from a team that is coming off a signature win. They held Towson in check all day. They wound up, winning 63-17. Kasim Hill wasn't expected to do everything, and he did a lot of things.
Boy, he looks special, doesn't he? Like, yeah. I don't know much, and I know he's playing against Towson out there, but he really looks like an incredible athlete, and he's young, and, he wouldn't even have been on the field, right? Maybe in the second half, right?
They lifted him late in the game, and, he made all the throws he needed to. He was 3 for 3 last week against Texas. He was then... I think he made his 9 first passes were complete against Towson. It's almost, hey man, just retire and then, with the record or what have you. He played well. The running game, what you like about this team, if they can continue to run this way once they get into the Big Ten season where they're getting these explosive plays from the running backs where it's not just the offensive line did a great job creating lanes for Ty Johnson and Jake Funk and the like, but the receivers making blocks downfield. That's been something that DJ Durkin has emphasized since day one, that it's, the running game, it's not just the guys, inside the tackle box. It's everybody. And the way you turn a 15-yard gain into a 60-yard gain, which Maryland has had more than a few of this season and last year, is you get the guys downfield, the Jacobs, the Moores, making that necessary block to spring Ty Johnson, that extra 20, and what a season that kid's having too. Granted, stock is very high right now. Towson is not Ohio State, nor is it Michigan, but their start right now has completely transformed the expectations of this season. Not to go political on you, Nestor,
right?
But you look at how do you get to 6 wins? It's like getting to 270 electoral votes. And at the beginning of the season, UCF, Rutgers, Towson, those were safe, games that you expect to win. Games like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, not exactly. You put those on the other side of the ledger. In the middle, their 2-0 start has made the games at Michigan State and Minnesota, those games are now possibilities as opposed to, gosh, how are they going to win there? Northwestern and Indiana at home, those games go from being, gosh, they really got to play well to somehow escape with a victory there to, you know what? They can win those games because they've put together 15 solid minutes of football. They put together, solid halves. They put together a solid game plan on both sides of the field. I'm not saying this team is Rose Bowl bound, but there's a very good chance now they could go bowling and lock up a bowl berth before the November gauntlet of Michigan and Michigan State.
Well, if nothing happens and they lose to Ohio State by 30 and they lose to Wisconsin by 14 and, they lose the games they're supposed to lose, the 4 or 5 that they're supposed to lose, at least they have a signature win. Right. And anything else if somehow they can hang with Michigan here in November, somehow they go to Lansing or beat Penn State on Thanksgiving, if somehow they get another victory like that, that really changes, I think, the perspective of everything. And look, you were on campus. It looked as sleepy as it's ever looked, and we'll get to the NFL and get to the Redskins and the Ravens and, me out in Cincinnati where there was more chili than there were people at the game as well. And I don't know where the enthusiasm comes from Maryland that anything's going to keep all these Michigan people out of there 2 months from now, because nothing's going to keep that from happening. The notion that Michigan's going to come in and you're going to see 56,000 people in red, that's just not the way it's going to work. But at some point, there needs to be some recruitment of, hey, look at us, we can win over here. And not for the people like me that used to sit in the seats and aren't. I'm talking about like opening the wings to say, I want to be a Maryland football fan. And that's what the Cole Fieldhouse project's about. That's what the apparel deals are about. That's why they change their helmets and their jerseys every week. But at some point, that has to equal something that's not, you say go bowling, but, playing some goofy Yankee Stadium Bowl or going out and playing the Weed Eater Bowl or the Potato Bowl or whatever the hell else that they've played over the course of time. I'm talking about I'm talking about, a major bowl. To think that could happen here again in this conference. They have a long way to go, but when you go and win in Texas, that says all you need to know. I mean, the rest of the year, I don't want to say it's gravy because you don't want to get beaten 63-0 and take on some drubbings the way they did last year. But there is already improvement, and I think there's already a reason to sort of circle the Saturdays on your calendar and watch the Terps play the rest of the year. These are going to be good games.
I think there's going to be some very competitive games down the stretch, at least, as far as you can see from what they've put on the field thus far. If you're a college football fan in Kasim Hill, Ty Johnson can't get you a little bit excited, there's something wrong with your pulse. You need to go, get things checked. I think one concern after the first 2 weeks, defensively, they did give up 3 special teams scores against Texas. They did hold Towson to under 20 points this past weekend, but the loss of Jesse Anibonham, their pass rushing specialist, he had 9 sacks last year. That's a guy who comes through, and he's going to be playing on Sundays, whether he stays an extra year or he's able to get a red shirt. This kid has Sunday written all over him. And the fact that he's not going to be here this fall to go up against the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Michigan States, because this is a kid who can make game-changing plays. And if you're going to beat the big boys in the Big Ten East, which is probably, in my opinion, the toughest division in college football, now that Penn State is back and relevant and Michigan State probably had a hiccup last year, there are 4 really good name programs in this division that the Terrapins compete in. If they're going to go 500 in the division, if they're going to, again, go to a bowl where it's not sponsored, aimed, and it's in an actual football stadium and people have actually heard of this, bowl as opposed to it's just been made up, they need to get somebody on the defensive side of the field who can make plays, who can be that difference maker that Jesse Anibonham was. Is Jermaine Carter that guy? I think he has a chance to be. Darnell Savage ran a pick 6 back last week that was the lone highlight of a second quarter where Towson made a lot of big plays. It's a shame that that Maryland still views itself as a basketball school with a football appetizer, because over the years there have been some great players who have come through here, and there were some great teams under Bobby Ross. Ralph Friedgen had some fantastic teams as well.
They put 5 quarterbacks in the league in the 1990s, right? I mean, literally, right?
Yeah, and what I think is important is that it is a different game now. I mean, the quarterbacks that Maryland sent to the pros back in the 80s are not the guys that they're getting in to play quarterback right now. Bortenschlager sounds more like a James Bond villain than an actual QB, but Kasim Hill is a guy who can really, and he's a true freshman right now, so that there are at least a couple of years as he grows and learns to really, light a fire under the college football faithful in this area, turn some of the Maryland fans from lukewarm to hot, and turn some casual fans to, you know what, I've got to check this guy out. I've got to check this team out and support the Terps.
Well, maybe go down there and see them play when they're playing Michigan and fill one of those seats with red instead of maize and whatever that ugly thing is there. Dave Preston is Dav Presto out on Twitter. He's also at WTOP down in D.C., covered college football and college basketball, and, of course, was at the Maryland-Towson game on Saturday. Maryland takes a little piece off here. They get back after with UCF next Saturday. Of course, we're going to be over in London doing the Ravens-Wembley game next Saturday as well. So, the timing of it doesn't match up with the London American time because it'll be in the evening when the Terps play over there. But in the afternoon, come join us over at the Fox at XL in the Docklands area of East London. Take the tube over. We're going to be taking the Emirates Air cable car across the River Thames to the O2 Arena. But the Terps will be playing UCF, and then it's off to Minnesota and Ohio State to end the month. Dave, you go back to Cherry Bowls and Weed Eater Bowls, and you sort of chuckled about, named bowls and all of that sort of stuff. You're down there with the Redskins on Sunday. We certainly have had a different experience here on our first Sunday out in Cincinnati. I mean, what a shocker, what a surprise. The defense pitching a shutout. Flacco's upright. They're running the ball. They win 20-0. Every Redskin fan on my timeline, and yes, I do keep a few, they are already where I was with the Orioles for 15 years, which is, it's opening day, we don't have a chance. And I think there's a real feeling of that going on around the Redskins right now. There doesn't feel like to be much hopeful there, does there?
No, the Redskin stock is definitely down. If you've got a couple extra bucks and want to, maybe get some value, you could definitely buy in. I'm not saying the stock's going to perform, but you definitely have a chance to buy a couple of shares. Every question mark that had entered this offseason, would Kirk Cousins be effective without Deshaun and Garcon? Would the running game be able to muster anything? Would the defense that ranked 28th overall last year be able to make plays on 3rd and long? All of those questions were answered yesterday, but they were the wrong answers for the Burgundy and Gold. They couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. I think Philly went 8 for 14 in moving the chains. The running game, Kirk Cousins was your leading rusher. The only time your quarterback should be the leading rusher is when you're running the veer or the wishbone, and that was not the case with the Skins. Without his primary targets from last year, his passer rating against the Eagles Sunday was a 72. Last season, his passer rating against Philly was a 97.3. So, and Cousins made a lot of mistakes defensively. They are better than they were last year, but not enough to be a difference maker when your offense underperforms. Terrell Pryor didn't look good at all. I think he had 11 targets, only 6 catches. My feeling, and I haven't seen enough Terrell Pryor. You've had much more of a chance to see him, as the Ravens take on Cleveland. But he seems to be the guy who is at his best when your team is down 14 at the half. And he gets a lot of catches, a lot of his yards against soft zones. And that's how he builds up his numbers of 60-plus catches and 1,000-plus yards. And Kirk Cousins does not have the weapons that he did last year, and it's going to show. And granted, they play the Rams, a team that had a fantastic opening Sunday, putting 46 points on the board. So, but
the schedule's tough on them, right, Dave? I mean, I didn't really look at it. This is a hell of a schedule for them, right? I mean, they've already lost. Now they have to go across the country and play a team that almost laid a 50 up on Sunday. Then they get the Raiders at home. Then they go to Kansas City. Whoo, man. I mean, they easily could be seeing an 0-4 and a donut at the bye week. Really?
And granted, every team thinks the league is out to get them. Last year, the Redskins went from a Sunday night game against Green Bay to playing on Thanksgiving against Dallas. They had a Monday night game at Carolina that they then played that Saturday at Chicago. So every team thinks that the league is out to get them, especially with these London games too. But the Redskins they also travel to play the Chargers, not in San Diego, but in Los Angeles. They have a lot of weird trips that just disrupt the rhythm, and heaven forbid they stumble against their former offensive coordinator in week 2. heaven forbid San Francisco and another former offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan's son, is able to put together a game plan to, to shock them, when they take on the Niners. Heaven forbid these ghosts of coordinators past and all this comes back to haunt them this season, because there are many people who cover this team who feel that there's a definite floor of potentially just a bad 6-10 team. And again, it's a week-to-week league. They've started 1-2 each of the 3 seasons previously under Jay Gruden. Last year they won 8 games. The year before they won 9. So it's one of those things that you never know how you are in September. Is no pure indicator of how you're going to be in December. But it's definitely not starting out strong for the Burgundy and Gold. And there are those who are already saying this team could be really bad.
Dave Preston joining us here from WTOP in Washington, D.C., whispering sweet nothings in our ear, the nothings of Washington Redskins football, especially when the Ravens are doing well. It puts a little extra hitch in our step around here to see them struggle down there. But let me say this about Philadelphia, because you saw the game, and again, I was in Cincinnati. Boy, Carson Wentz is going to be okay, right? I mean, all the off-season things that the Eagles did last year that were so bizarre in order to get him, he really does look like an elite quarterback, or the makings of a kid that is, for the next 6, 8, 10 years in Philadelphia is going to give them a chance to win 10 games every year.
He made plays with his feet, Nestor. He made some great plays with his arm, and I was watching the game thinking to myself, is this the same kid who locked himself in a gas station bathroom last year? I mean, you're going into a gas station bathroom. That's not a great decision. Two, you lock yourself in. So, I mean, is this the same kid who did that? You never know with quarterbacks, because so many guys who've been picked in the top 5 have been absolute busts. We could go through the whole list, but we won't. But this looks like a good move by the Eagles. And just when you thought, if you're a Redskins fan, just when you thought that it was safe to think that the Eagles were down again, they're back up, and you're looking at your organization. And are you solid at quarterback with Kirk Cousins, who could very well, fly out of here at the end of the season? You've got a coaching staff that you've got new coordinators on both sides of the ball. How stable, and you've got a general manager who's no longer here. How exactly stable are you? So there are those who are looking at the Eagles on Sunday saying, man, they look like at least they have direction, that they have one of those, they look like a company that has a mission statement. And what is our mission statement? Do we even have a mission? Do we even have a statement?
He is Dave Preston, and he is resting comfortably right now. You got a lot of work to do here, dude. I mean, the Orioles pretty much killed their weekend in Northern Ohio against the best team on the planet right now with the Cleveland Indians. Meanwhile, on my Twitter feed, I see national champagne celebrations, and everybody's having a good time. And, they are just looking forward to Game 1, right? Trying to figure that thing out, that they've got that going on as the Caps go to camp, and the Wizards are a couple of weeks away from doing the same thing. But the Nationals are going to own the place down there for a little while. And clearly, as we pointed out, the Redskins, they might be 1-3 or something like that, but they're certainly not going to be 3-1 by the time the playoffs start. And
what's nice about granted, it's champagne in September, so it's really not even technically champagne, because I'm sure they got something from California. So technically, that's sparkling wine for those aficionados.
Apple cider or whatever the hell it is.
Exactly.
I know it's tough to get out of your hair because I've had it in my hair.
Yes, but what's different though is that the previous 2 times that they were defending division champs, they laid an egg under Davey Johnson. In 2013, 2015. They were mismanaged by Matt Williams, and you had the choking incident with Jonathan Papelbon. That did not end well. It's nice to see them come out and be expected to win, to have the pressure of being a defending champ, and then go out and answer those challenges. To go out and, even though they lost their starting center fielder in April, to bounce back from that, to lose multiple players. I think that at one point they had started 12 or 13 outfielders before rosters expanded, when you can really mix things up. So they've definitely grinded their way to the postseason. Granted, you've got to win at least a round or 2, as opposed to going one and done, in 2012, 2014, and 2016. It feels as though Mike Rizzo has made the necessary moves, solidifying the bullpen with those late trades in July, bringing in Howie Kendrick kind of under the radar. Hey, he's been a fantastic piece to this team, to this offense, and in a perfect world, guys are healthy and he is coming off the bench in the postseason. That's a weapon that they really didn't have last year. Last year, their last out of the season was made by Wilmer Defoe. And that just hurts when and the previous the last out of the 8th inning was made by Michael A. Taylor, and he wasn't playing well. The previous last out of the 7th inning was, I think, Anthony Rendon. He was having a god awful series. So I'd much rather have my last out of the game or an inning come from a Ryan Zimmerman, come from an Anthony Rendon who's having a career year in 2017, or have a Howie Kendrick as opposed to a Defoe or a Diaz or somebody who doesn't have that postseason gravitas. So again, it's a long way between now and October, but they've clinched, and that's one less thing that we have to worry about in DC.
What is this October thing you speak of that I'm unfamiliar with? This October baseball thing. We'll be watching. This is the worst case scenario for Angelos, right? Nose pressed up to the glass, watching the Nationals try to go get themselves a trophy, right?
Well, the thing is, hopefully Dusty Baker will use his closer in an extra inning playoff game if they get to that situation and it's one and done.
No matter what Dusty did, he did smoke dope with Jimi Hendrix. That makes him cool for life no matter what, so I can't hate on Dusty Baker. Hey, last thing for you here. Capitals dropping the puck this week, right? It's here again, and I know you're a big Caps guy. Just, anything you want to say about the offseason and Ovechkin's new leanness and refocus? Hey, on our side, we see a leaner, very focused version of Terrell Suggs. When guys are in their mid-30s and they've got all the money, it really says something to me when they make a real move to do something special. And apparently Ovechkin saw some light of fire under his tail this summer.
Well, I think also Ovi had one of his weaker seasons last year. He had a strong first half, and then it just seemed to taper off. Perhaps that was a little bit of conditioning. Perhaps that's part of getting older and what have you. So if he comes back, he's the captain of this team, and I've never thought he's been mentally suited to be a captain. You can be the best player, but you don't necessarily have to be the captain, the guy who is running the team on the ice, so to speak. It looks like he is trying to live up to his captaincy. On other sides, I'm missing Nate Schmidt. I wish we had found a way to keep him in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be tough to see Carl Alsner with that Canadian C on his chest as opposed to.
Look, man, you can't keep them all. I liked Williams.
I know. So, but right now, seeing these guys on other teams for the first time, it's settling in. I'm going to get over it. I'm going to be all in with this new bunch.
Dave, TJ Oshie's still here. It's good. We weren't expecting that, quite frankly. No. I thought someone would back up a Brinks truck for him.
Right. That was, in my opinion, that was the move of the offseason for this team, to keep him here because he's been a great addition to this club. And he's still young enough to have a couple of really good seasons ahead of him. So
I'm trying to talk you off the ledge here. By the way, they still might win a President's Trophy again. They might be that good. They're certainly a top 3 seed, I believe. They're certainly capable of being that kind of team. They don't have to take massive steps backward this year, I don't think.
Right, and Nestor, until they get to a Cup final, or at least a Cup semifinal, the worst seat in the house of that arena is in the press box. You're sitting down, and right in front of you are those presidents, is the banner that talks about all their presidents' trophies. And that's just staring you in the face, and all you can think of while you're covering the game is, yes, great regular season excellence, but no trips to the Stanley Cup Finals with this bunch. I'd be more than happy to see them be a 2 or a 3 seed that's peaking at the right time and find a way to get it done and bounce the Penguins and the Rangers and every other team that we hate en route to a Cup final.
So to recap our conversation with Dave Preston, Terps, thumbs up. Redskins, thumbs down. Nationals, sideways, but in the playoffs, and we'll wait and see on the Washington Caps. Dave, always a pleasure to check in with you, man. It's getting busy around here again now, isn't it?
Yes, sir, Nestor, and I thank you for not calling me last week because I was celebrating George Lazenby's birthday. He turned 78, did one James Bond movie, but we still celebrate the Aussies B-Day.
By the way, married to Pam Shriver for many years as well, too. So
yes, for
let's
a while.
not forget that. I mean, Baltimore connections there as well. He is Dave Preston. He is Dav Presto out on Twitter. He is a big James Bond fan as well as a college football, college basketball analyst. You can follow him at Dav Presto. He also writes a great blog at Preston's Perspective out on WordPress and at WTOP.com. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We're streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Wednesday night, we're going to be at a Greenmount Station in Hampstead with two Ravens offensive linemen. Ryan Jensen, who was a lot of fun last year, came out with Alex Lewis last year. This year, he's bringing our big right tackle out, Austin Howard, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, and he was a part of our swabbing with Jack Del Rio out in Oakland last year, so we're looking forward to having some crab cakes. We're swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry for There Goes My Hero on Wednesday night. Come on out, say hello, have some crab cakes, and let's have some fun. The Ravens are 1-0, 20-0 victory. You can't do better than that on the road in the division. Last but never least, if there's any breaking news at all this week, you're going to get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford, Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.